Hello and welcome to Teenagers Untangled, the audio hug for parents going through the teen and tween years. I'm Rachel Richards, parenting coach, journalist, mother of 2 teenagers and 2 bonus daughters. Now, I had my daughters in the studio recently. We answered some questions sent in by listeners. I really enjoyed it. I learnt a lot from it and I thought, why not just get them in again? We have a few more questions. So welcome, Phoebe and Amelia.
Hi.
We're going to talk today about respect. A chart of emojis that I did mention in one of my previous episodes, and people are still interested in getting the chart of emojis. And I want to talk about that, AI and toxic femininity, if we have time to get to that. Right. So one of the questions I want to start with is one that really stood out to me. And you could probably do an entire episode on it, but let's see how we get on. And the question is, what does it take to respect people around you, especially your parents? So this was, I think, a mother who asked this question. It sounds to me like she's exasperated with her teenager. So first of all, what do you think? Do you have sort of off the cuff response to that question?
Well, I mean, when you mentioned it to us before, my immediate response was then there has to be mutual respect. Like the child has to feel like they're completely respected by the parent.
Yeah. You have to give respect to get respect. And I don't like the whole hierarchy thing where just because somebody's older than you, you have to respect them. I think you should start off with respect for everybody. But then as soon as somebody proves you that you shouldn't be respecting them, then...
But I think kids are conscious of that.
Yeah.
You know, even young ones. They know if they're being treated... and they feel like they're not being respected by their parents, then they're not going to respond with that either.
It's interesting, isn't it? Because David Jager, who wrote the book 10 to 25, says that once kids hit 10 and above, they are utterly focused on respect. Mm-hmm. It's really interesting. And I looked up the definitions for respect. So one of the definitions was a feeling of deep admiration for someone or something elicited by their abilities, qualities, or achievements. I think that goes above what I thought. And then the other one was due regard for the feelings, wishes, or rights of others. That's sort of closer to what I think of when I think of respect. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean... Yeah, I think that the second one is...
Yeah, and actually I think that second definition, to me, that's almost about good manners. That's just treating other people the way that you would like to be treated, and it's been considerate of other people's needs. Right? Does that make sense? Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so I think my most challenging parent at Parent Gym was someone who set out to challenge my position. And she walked in late, or not late, right at the very end of when we were just about to start, marched straight past me to the window carrying a bag of chips and looked out of the window, and I said, "Oh, welcome, hi, nice to meet you." And she went, "I'm eating chips." And
oh, I hadn't realised.
and it was so interesting because I recognised that. I recognised that feeling that she had and the need she felt to assert her own independence. And I thought, this is someone who hasn't been treated with respect.
Yeah.
So I just said to her, "Oh, that's fine. Would you like a cup of tea or maybe a biscuit with that?" And we set off like that. And over the weeks, when I showed her a lot of respect and actually genuinely thought she was an interesting person, our relationship really blossomed.
Yeah.
And I think that's a good example of how when we treat other people with respect, you will find that they start to return it.
Yeah, but see, you were the person in power, which
I
is
was the
why,
person in
which
power.
is why
True.
you
That's
were
exactly
the
what I was
one who
thinking.
needed to treat her with respect
Yes.
to gain her respect.
I like that.
And I think, yeah.
Yes, and in a way, we have to set the tone. And I found when I was a teenager, before I became a teenager, I grew up in a household that was very hierarchical and very much authoritarian. And up until probably the teen years, I didn't really question it much. I didn't like it, but I didn't really question it. But I then started to realise that I didn't like what was being done, and I tried to show how I thought things should be, but that wasn't I couldn't do that.
Yeah.
So every time I tried to sort of say, well, I don't think this is, the way I think that we should run this household, I would get knocked back. And my mother would just say, well, you should respect your father. And I kept thinking, why? Why should I respect my father?
Yeah. And also kids, not even kids, but we are judging you, even subconsciously.
You're judging me?
No, but But it's interesting because I do often find myself sort of analysing interactions that either you've had with us or with Daddy, or you know, and I'm not actively like pondering over them and going, you know, but we do think about things like that.
Interesting.
And I have a friend who unfortunately is not very close with her mother, and a massive part of that is because she has lost huge respect for her in the way that she's gone about dealing with some things that have come up. And, you know, and yeah, we are looking at our parents who are meant to be sort of role models and showing us how to treat people. And if they're like reacting unreasonably, then kids aren't going to respect you.
I love that. And I think what's interesting is I've read the book Family Dynamic, which is all about the families where all the kids do really, really well. And the reason I thought it was such an interesting book was the experience of the author, Susan Dominus, was the same as mine. When she was a teenager, went to go and spend time with another family and suddenly realised that people do things differently. And it was a real shock to her. And it also started a lifelong interest in how other family dynamics worked. And that happened to me too. I went to a friend's house and the father actually asked me how my day had been. And I'd never experienced that before. And it suddenly made me think, oh, gosh, actually, wow, some people have dads who take an interest in them. And I think that then sets off this questioning of your own family and the dynamic that's happening there.
Yeah. And you also have to think about what you're subconsciously communicating to your kids as well. Because if, for example, you've always brought your kids up to know that there's, you know, you've got the adults table and you've got the kids table, like from a young age. And, you know, they won't sit with you on a bit, then when they grow up and you're expecting them to act like adults, but they're you know, but they've never been given that responsibility, and you know they're not going to like behave the way that you would like them to and fit in within an adult situation because you've always treated them as younger, and kids pick up on that.
Yeah, I mean this comes into school too, doesn't it? Are there people, teachers that you particularly respect or ones you don't respect? And are there reasons for that?
Yes, definitely. I had one teacher at my old school who was the most incredible teacher. And the reason, and I really, really respected him. He would stay after school to help people. He believed in everybody and every one of his students. And that really made everybody want to work hard. And he would spend equal time on the people who are better and the people who are worse. Whereas a lot of teachers like that validation from the people who are better, and you're like, oh yeah, they're going to spend all their time with them and like helping them so that they can do really well and just kind of neglect the other people. But he was like, okay, every single one of you can get a 9. And he taught also in a kind of a different way to other people. Like I remember he was a chemistry teacher, and he was like, oh yeah, you can never use amount, like the word amount in your chemistry paper, because that would, like, you'll lose marks. So he got out a piece of paper, wrote amount on it, and then burnt the piece of paper.
I love it.
Yeah, and then that's really stuck in my brain. But yeah, he was like, I think all of us in that class really respected him, and he was also quite strict, but it wasn't strict in a bad way. It wasn't like, oh yeah, like strict for no reason. It was like, if you're doing something wrong, you're going to get told off.
Yeah. A big factor is can you control the class? But also, again, like if you can't control them, then a lot of the time it's because they don't respect you. Like they're misbehaving because they don't. So it's a vicious cycle. And then I lose respect for my teachers who don't respond. But yeah, I mean, even things like, making threats and then not following through.
Oh, that's a big one, like, big mistake parents make.
Yeah, and we're aware of it. Like, I haven't had many experiences of that with you because you do follow through on your threats.
Well, that's one of the things I learned in Parent Gym, coaching parents in inner city London. Critically, you simply can't. We had a really great example of that, which was if you play a game and you say there's a forfeit, and then you say, oh, actually it's fine, I don't want to make you feel bad, and then the next time you play the game, nobody will believe you, and
people will get even more angry when you do follow through.
Yes,
because
they will.
Hang on. Last time you didn't,
Consistency is critical.
not even just that. If you're going to put in a rule for your child, you also need to be doing that rule. Like,
Yes.
that is such a big thing. If you tell your kid to not have their phone in their room when they're sleeping, you can't have yours in your room either. Then they're just like, what the hell? Because you're preaching, but you're not following your own rules. Like,
yes, and that's something that we
make
sure we do in our own home.
Yeah.
I do try to lead with a realization that what I do actually matters. So fairness and consistency matter. I think mutual trust, so kids and adults respect people they trust.
Yes, going through phones. Mm-mm.
Yeah, don't do that.
No. I don't know why I just came up with that, but
Yes.
Yeah.
I think it's a real issue. Well, actually, that brings me on to the emoji question. So there was an emoji chart issued by, he's a great guy, and I will put it up on the website just so that people have it. And the emoji chart was off the back of the adolescence episode, and it was a guide to parents who might be thinking, what do these emojis mean? And the Netflix adolescence series demonstrated kids using emojis and parents not understanding them. And I then hesitated, and I thought, actually,
I didn't understand half of them.
well, yes. And I think they will vary with different groups. And I also think if you don't understand a child's emoji and you can't say to them, what does that mean? First of all, why are you looking at their emojis? So are you going through their phone and thinking, what does this emoji mean? Or are you not able to ask them? And in either of those cases, there's an issue with trust, isn't there? So it's actually made me think maybe the answer is not to try and give parents emoji charts to understand what's going on. It's actually maybe have proper conversations with your child, and that's the most important thing. It's about the connection.
I was thinking of a different, it's very similar, but the dad had read something on the news or something, and some celebrity had died. And he said, oh, this person's dead. Skull emoji, skull emoji, skull emoji. Which is like, it means, it's like, I'm dying with laughter. People mainly use that when it's like, this is so
People
funny.
can use it to be like sarcastic as well. But
Yes. It's like skull. And she's like, you know you're basically just taking the piss out of this person.
Someone who just, right. And that's okay. Yes, I love that. And that's like when you go into a foreign country and you start using words thinking you know.
Yeah, and then they're like, what?
Like embarazado, which is when you think you're saying embarrassed as an English person, but what you're actually saying is I'm pregnant. It's classic. It's a classic. So yes, don't try it unless you really understand what you're talking about. So I think we have to understand that. Also, one last thing I want to say about respect is that I think you can't truly respect others if you don't believe you matter too. It starts with how you treat yourself and how your child sees you doing that. So as a parent, you need to respect yourself. You need to treat yourself with the way you talk about yourself, the way you set boundaries in your home, the way you talk to other people. I think all of this, your kids watching and judging.
Yeah. Also, I have another thing. So if you want respect from your child, you can't coddle them either. Like,
oh, interesting. What do you mean?
They weren't very nice to their parents. And their parents really would like hurt by that and would do anything to get her to like them. And then they would give her concert tickets, they would give her all this stuff, money, like presents, all this stuff, like jet cats, whatever. And that didn't help at all, because it was like, what was the point in trying to be nice if you were just going to give them all this stuff? And, that doesn't form respect either.
Yeah, I can see that. I can see that.
Yeah, they were trying to...
By giving her things.
It didn't make her like them anymore.
No. And, it goes back to treat people the way you'd like to be treated. I mean, I would like you to be doing that. Like, give me as many concert tickets as you want. But if she's treating you badly, but you need to be putting boundaries in place.
Yes, and saying I'm not actually going to accept that. Not even just that,
getting in touch with your emotions and being like, okay, you just said this and that's hurt me because of this, instead of just doing a bunch of stuff and hoping that it's going to go away.
Yes, and being vulnerable yourself in a way so that they can see that that's not an acceptable thing to do.
Yeah,
I agree with that. Yeah.
My vulnerability is on my sleeve. Right, I think that's a very, very interesting topic. Let's talk about AI. The reason I want to talk about this is I saw a headline that I shared on social media, which said that all Chinese kids are required to learn AI starting in September. But as you mentioned, Amelia, there was no detail. And
Like
one of
learn AI. What
yeah,
do you
learn
mean
AI. What does that mean?
AI?
And one of our listeners, Leonardo Filetto, who's a teacher in Italy, commented, "What does it mean to study AI? To learn how to use it, to write better prompts, to understand AI and how it's built, how it works? I mean, what are they talking about?" And he says, personally, I started walking students through AI, encouraging them to carefully experiment with whichever things might be useful for them. And he uses those resources for teachers that are freely available. And he says it's already happening in most schools. Is that your experience?
Yes, I think with some teachers. With other teachers, they were like, you use AI, you're going to get, like, we can see it, you're going to get, like, no, a really, really bad grade, like, we're going to punish, like, do something to stop you, or something like that. And with other teachers, it was like, use AI to your advantage, you know, make it formulate questions for you, make it, like, AI is
so they coached you a bit.
AI
they gave
is so good. Like,
Yes.
honestly, not just because it's like, oh yeah, just write me out a paragraph. Like, that's not the right way to use it, because when it gets to your exam, that's not going to be any help. But, like, it's so good because it can basically write you a whole paper on anything you want. So you don't have to pay for anything. It can explain any topic. It's a godsend.
My experience was, I mean, I remember when ChatGPT very first came out, and that was during my GCSEs. I mean, even before that. But I remember a boy telling to me and showing me it, and I was like, "What the hell is this? What is this?"
That was like when I first discovered Google.
Yeah, I was like, "What?" And I thought it was really stupid because it just wouldn't give me any of the right information. I was like, I was smarter than a robot. But the school's initial reaction was to completely shut it down. I remember they blocked it.
Interesting.
On our phones, on our laptops, we weren't allowed to use it. And then they've kind of gradually introduced it into, well, they haven't really introduced it into lessons or anything like that. And they don't talk about it much, but I mean, it's very obvious to your teachers when you do use it. Yeah. Like, they can tell.
Even if you use, like, humanizing AI, that it's still.
Well, yeah.
Really
I mean,
obvious.
I remember my teacher telling me that she had given her class a prompt, and you know, they went away it was an essay or something. And they all came back with obviously different versions of this essay, but every single one had the same conclusion, like the same phrasing for the conclusion. And then she put the question to ChatGPT and basically got the same essay that everyone else had written, just in a different word. So they can tell.
Well, I'm interested in this because, so I remember a couple of years ago, a professor in Hong Kong saying we shouldn't be saying don't use AI. We should be saying go away and write your best essay using the power of AI to help you.
Yeah.
And that we should be guiding kids to understand
agree.
how to leverage it.
In my photography class when I was still at school, we'd take pictures, or we'd be given an artist reference, and we'd have to write essays on it. And then we put them into our pages. And I had an artist, and I couldn't find anything about them online. So I searched it up on ChatGPT. I was like, can you give me some prompts, like, to, like, search stuff up online? Can you give me some prompts to, like, write my essay on? That kind of stuff, which is really good for, because it'll give you, like, a heading, and then you can write something, and then a subtitle.
It's
really good. Now my teacher comes behind me and she goes, "Why are you using AI?" And I was like, I tried to explain it to her, and she got really angry at me, and then gave me, I think it was a demerit.
Right. Right. And I think there's a lot of fear. And I also think that in a way, the ad hoc approach is not helpful, that they need whole school policies, and each of the teachers needs to be able to be supported in how to, because I spoke to a girl at a drinks party the other night, and she's at university, and she said that at where she is, they're just saying, don't use AI. Yeah. Which again is so unhelpful, because these are kids who are going to go into the workforce and they're going to be expected to have at least a passing understanding of how to leverage it. And I think it's going to speed up a lot of the work processes.
That's another thing. There were so many times at school where I was told not to do something, or I was told to do something because that's what we would have to do when we leave school. But then half the stuff that we also get told at school has nothing to do with anything we're going to be doing in the future.
Right.
So, like, for example, with AI, we're going to be using that in our workspace
unquestionably,
in some type of way. So being told not to use that is really unhelpful because it's just not going to prepare you.
And I have a theory that, well, I did an interview about memory quite a long time ago. And I said to the woman, yes, but we don't need our memory anymore because we have Google. And she said, that's not true. And it really stuck with me because she said that the thing about memory is that we constantly use bits from our long-term memory when we are creating a conversation and when we're creating an argument. And if you don't have that information either in your short-term or your long-term memory because you're so used to always looking things up, then you're actually going to struggle.
You can't just pause a debate and start researching facts in the middle,
Yes. But we have started doing that. I mean, we actually do that sometimes. Well, as a family, we talk about a lot of things and every now and then we'll say, should we look that fact up?
I think that's different because we're fact-checking stuff.
Fact-checking stuff,
and, like, people will come out with stuff, I mean, mostly me, which isn't true.
And
it's good to look it up so that we actually
ground ourselves in some fact.
I mean, we have to remember what the purpose of using AI is because, or like why we're doing these things, because especially in schools, if you're being asked to write an essay, I mean, you made this point earlier, you're not being asked to write an essay for the sake of writing an essay. Like running it through AI and then just handing it in and not doing anything.
Utterly
like,
pointless.
what is the point of doing that?
Yes.
You might as well just not write the essay.
Yeah.
Because the whole point about writing the essay, I talked about this recently, is to actually help you develop your brain.
Exactly.
I mean, your brain is very plastic. We're trying to get you to think more clearly and to be more analytical and critical.
Yeah.
And if you're not doing any of that,
but AI
what's the benefit?
Is good for not fact checking, proofreading. It is like when you write an essay and then you put it into AI and you say, can you tell me if I've made any mistakes?
I've done that before. I mean, it depends on there are loads of different AI sort of like platforms, but ChatGPT is not good for that at all.
Yeah.
I put my personal statement through it and it gave me more mistakes than I
Really funny.
But what it is, you have to bear in mind that it's a language model, right? So it's terrible with maths. It won't fact check for you. It will make things up for you, and it still does that.
You know something?
It wants to give you stuff. It needs to come up with some kind of response, and it does not like saying, "I'm sorry, I can't do this." So if you ask it to do something, it will do it for you, but it won't necessarily be correct. Like it will fabricate people. It will fabricate facts, sources, things like that. So, but you can tailor it to work for you.
Which is why you shouldn't write your essay using AI.
Yeah, because it will make things up.
And I tell you what I use it for. I've tried using it for sort of scripting my episodes. Awful, because it doesn't sound like me. It doesn't have, I just don't like it at all. I don't like using it for research. What I use it for is I will take a transcript of, say, what we've been doing, run it through AI to get it to make the bullet points. Things like that, where I've done all the work beforehand.
Exactly.
It's great at that stuff.
Yeah,
but it's all my content.
Yes. It's meant to help you, but not do things for you. As I was saying, like it's a language model, but its like biggest skill is coding. And it's extremely good at coding. And I have no experience in computer science, coding, anything. Like I've never even really seen code before. But yesterday I got it to create a Chrome extension for me to block me from leaving the tab that I'm on for a certain amount of time when I'm working.
To help you work.
And it's things like that.
Brilliant.
Like it's not just restrained to, writing and making essays or prompts or things like that. Like you can actually make it create things.
Yes. And
like
that's amazing.
And,
You know what you should try doing if you have ChatGPT? It is actually really funny. I asked it to make me an 8-step recipe on how to cook an egg, right? And it came up, and half of it wasn't even an egg. Like, it was so bad at that kind of stuff, and it was actually really...
just look it up online.
No, because I wanted to see what it would do. I also tried to get it to make me a map of Europe. It made up countries.
I saw that. That was very funny.
Yeah.
It actually literally made up countries, scrambled names. It was ridiculous. One thing I want to mention before we move on is that I saw a headline in the Times saying young people turn to AI for therapy over long NHS waiting lists. NHS being our English healthcare system. Do you use ChatGPT? I can see you laughing for this.
I have actually turned to it before.
Yeah.
And it's not bad.
Yes.
It's actually quite because it's affirmative. So ChatGPT will tell you what you want to hear, but it will actually like.
There's nothing wrong with that.
No, exactly. And if you're looking,
there is actually,
but if you're looking for reassurance, it's very good at
so don't worry.
And yeah, exactly. It's if you're catastrophizing, then it's actually quite helpful to put your problem in ChatGPT.
But I think you've also used it for things like where you've had a feeling and you thought, I'm not sure why I'm having this feeling.
Yeah, it's
what
really
could it
good
be?
at that. It's very good at sort of unpicking things that you give it. So there have been times when I've asked it, why might I be thinking this or feeling this way? And then if you give it some context, then it can give you reasons behind that. And I have found it to be correct.
My ChatGPT started using emojis.
Started using emojis?
Yeah.
That's not very helpful. Given,
Mine was so
given
rude
what we've
to me
already
the other
said.
day.
Yours was
Mine was so rude.
Tell us.
I asked it because I'm going travelling this summer. And I was looking for, I already have a digital camera, but I was wondering whether there are any kind of old school, maybe film cameras or digital cameras that I can get for not very much money. I wanted like budget digital camera. And I asked it where, what the best models might be and where I can get them. And it started giving me cameras in the like grand 1,000, 2,000 pound range. And I'm like, this is not what I want to take traveling with me. This is going to get damaged. And so I came back to it and I said, well, that's not really very budget friendly, is it? And then it started being so sassy and so rude. And it was like, well, I guess we're not being very specific then about what we want. Let me, like, you asked for good quality cameras, but I guess we're going budget now. So it was coming out with all of these, like... And I made it apologise to me because I was very hurt. It really wrecked my mood. I was like, I just wanted you to give me some cameras.
Did you hear about...
So did you actually say, I expect you to say sorry?
Yes. And it was...
And did it came up with actually a very good apology, didn't it?
I asked it several times and it got more and more effusive and,
That's so funny.
It was like, is there anything I can do? Yeah. If you want to find out how to apologise to someone very effectively, then ask ChatGPT.
I love that.
Because it can give you... Yeah.
Did you hear about that boy who was talking to the Google AI and the Google AI told him to jump off a bridge?
I didn't
hear about that.
No.
No, yeah, and they looked at the history and they were like, okay, this is
Did he jump off the bridge?
No,
Okay.
but he reported it and they looked
Right.
at the history and they were like, this is completely unprompted. We don't know why
Right.
it decided to say this.
And that is worrying. So let's quickly do a little bit about toxic femininity. And I say toxic femininity because a man called Liam McGuire, who's on LinkedIn, said this was in response to us talking about skincare obsessions and the fact that younger and younger girls seem to be getting hooked into this whole thing. And he said if men or fathers were encouraging 8-year-old boys like their sons to be macho, to enhance and adjust their bodies, to become obsessive about lifting weights, to pose in the mirror, experiencing an often lifelong body complex, we would see a tidal wave of toxic masculinity posts. And maybe that's fair. And yet we don't hear anyone assign toxic femininity, this increasing maternal princess by proxy issue, or the leeching of young girls' self-esteem by female celebrity models making huge amounts of money by actively making them feel ugly and less worthy. And we have to be honest about all of this because it's being perpetuated by females, misguided mums and model celebs, influencers, those who have an obsession with social media and their own physical superficialities. He's a father of a young girl. And he said he's just very worried about the pervasive harm that all of this is doing to daughters and their self-esteem. What are your thoughts?
So first of all, I think that comparison is unfair. I think that the whole muscles and training and weights, that kind of whole stuff, that is not... You can't compare that to skincare.
Well,
Because that fits into the whole bigorexia part. That would be like encouraging your young girls to be like skinny and not eating as much, and anorexic. I think that those two are unfair. I do think that the macho, the whole like encouraging your child to like, well, I don't know.
I think they can be paralleled because I think the skincare fits into it's a much wider superficiality thing about being obsessive about your appearance. I think they do fall under the same umbrella, but we're not addressing it in the same way. And I think like what's evident in the way that you've just seen it is that like maybe that's why we're not sticking this label of toxic femininity on it, because it's getting under the radar, because we're like, oh well, it's just skincare, what's that going to do?
No, I agree.
But it's harmful.
I agree that it is toxic femininity. I disagree that you can compare it to bigorexia.
But you could say, well, but you're putting this term bigorexia on it, but maybe some people would say, oh, it's just going to the gym. I'm encouraging my son to be healthy.
No, but that's like saying...
And to be masculine.
Yeah.
No, but that's the same as saying, oh yeah, I'm encouraging my daughter to be healthy, and then making sure she only eats salads and starts limiting her food. That's not the same as skincare.
I know, but if you were listening, this isn't just about skincare. It's about the whole thing.
The whole toxic femininity. Yeah, I understand that, but you can't compare skincare and.
But is it women's fault? I'm just interested because when I read the book Sexism and Sensibility, one of the points she made was that from a very young age, people comment about girls' appearances, and it comes equally from men and women. Oh and God. I think women are in a double bind.
The amount of times I've been told to smile.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yes. Well, I mean, I had a relative comment on cellulite.
Yeah.
When I was like, how old was I?
I don't know, 6, 7.
6?
Yes.
Yeah. So I mean, yeah, it is pervasive, and girls are always But I mean, it doesn't bother me now.
No. But I actually, as soon as I heard that, I instantly said, "Do not comment on my child's appearance."
Because
I was actually very deliberate about keeping you away from comments like that.
I babysat a girl a couple months ago, I think it was. No, more than a couple months. Quite a few months ago. And she's 11, and she started playing Roblox. And she came up to me and she showed me her Roblox avatar, and she started complaining that her avatar had cellulite. And this avatar is basically, if it was real, it would be a supermodel. And she was like, oh, look at all this cellulite. And I was like, that avatar has no cellulite. What are you talking about?
How curious.
And I was like,
it sounds like she doesn't know what cellulite is.
Yeah.
But then that's the question. Exactly.
So I wonder whether that's the culture that we're raising our kids in.
I think we do need to ask why we're doing this and what the driver is, because, I mean, you made a good point, which is that girls, like, I feel like from a young age, there is more focus on girls' appearances when they're younger.
Yeah,
huge.
But I do actually think that it's not that we're trying to, people could say, oh well, it's not performative, but like it's for men, like we're trying to look good for men, and it's part of the patriarchy and da da da. But I actually think it is part of this toxic femininity thing. I think actually there's a stronger drive from women making other women feel like they need to look good than men, because I remember at my most insecure, I wasn't thinking about guys at all. I was thinking about how other women were perceiving me.
Interesting.
And how my friends were perceiving me and how I looked compared to other women. And it wasn't about looking for male attention or male validation. It was all, how am I going to fit in on this, this kind of
how
ladder
do I be a good woman?
Yeah, exactly. And I think it is. I think the problem is among women, not men. I think that is the real.
But you're both not really that affected by you're not desperately trying to fit into some particular mould of femininity, are you?
I think that's right. But I've never really cared about my looks. Like, my looks have kind of just been off the radar for me. Right. Because I've never really been like, oh, like, I don't know. For me, like, obviously I'm insecure about a lot of things, and like, I'm not saying that people who are insecure about their looks are less, good or anything. I'm just saying that I don't know why that is. And I remember the girls at my old school, like, weighing themselves, and oh my God, that was a really toxic phase, and wearing like makeup, but like that, like wearing makeup at a young age, that's more about fun and like expressing yourself and like making yourself look nice and that kind of stuff. But that stuff was like never really on my radar, and I don't know why.
Interesting.
And it still really isn't. Like,
yeah, I mean, that's the thing. Like, a lot of what we do is alien to men, and I don't think they actually care whether you use micellar water to wash your face.
I don't think they do.
But
I think they find the whole thing really puzzling.
This whole thing is being peddled to us by women.
Yeah.
Online.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, this is what the celebs are using. I want to be like them. I want to look like them. So I'm going to do that.
But don't you think that we human beings are visual creatures? We do notice whatever we wear, and we do send signals to other people about fitting into a tribe and being a certain thing. And I think if we have teenagers trying to learn how to be a man, how to be a woman in a society, they're going to be looking for clues.
Yeah.
And a huge amount of the messaging now is not particularly healthy. I mean, all the OnlyFans ridiculous messaging is very, very concerning to me.
To both girls and boys.
To both girls and boys. It's not just, we have had a lot of conversations about toxic masculinity, but I think it's true of girls too.
I think the models are actually more dangerous than OnlyFans, because OnlyFans, it's like you know that they've got plastic surgery, like it's just a given, and I know, like, yeah, they all do, because they wouldn't look like that. That's not a normal way to look, and so I know one OnlyFans model who's quite open about her plastic surgery, and who's quite open about her journey, and how, like, she's like, okay, you shouldn't go into this unless you're 100% sure. Don't go into this job at 18. This isn't something, it's not actually a good job. It will affect your life in ways that nothing else will. I think that it's the modelling industry which is dangerous, because people look at that, and that is kind of, it goes back to the whole heroin chic thing, that it's like skinny, having no fat
No shape,
anywhere. Is like the kind of fashion at the moment.
It's always been it's been the fashion for a very long time.
Yeah, well, it's the fashion, and it has been for ages. And I think that's a lot more dangerous for young girls, because the OF industry, that's going to encourage girls to do anything. That's going to be to OnlyFans.
Oh, right.
If that's going to encourage girls to do anything, it's going to be to work out and to eat more, like, healthily and more protein, because most of them are really strong and have, like, big bones because, like, muscles there, that kind of stuff. Whereas with the modelling industry, that kind of thing is just going to encourage girls not to eat anything.
But even kind of fitness influencers, I find there are very few that I actually like following. Well, no, it's not because of that, but it's just because the lifestyle is just so unrealistic and unattainable.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And it's like, what are we aspiring to? Like, what is the point of this?
Yeah.
So
my theory is that what we need to be doing is we need to be much more present in terms of providing role models for our kids, whether they're boys or girls, and not just us parents. We need other people in their lives. It can't just be coming from us. We need to gather people around us who we think are really great role models and get our kids spending time with them.
The problem is, if you're looking for a role model who's like a normal size, that's really hard to find, because the people on social media who are active, they're either active because they're really thin, or like they fit into the beauty standard and they're really popular because of that, or they're
and it's the same
plus
for boys.
Size, no, or or they're like plus size, like body positivity influencers, which isn't healthy either.
Yeah. I meant in real life. I mean, actually, I think one of the most powerful things we parents can do is to try and find other adults in our community who reflect much more positive, wholesome.
I must say, on this toxic femininity, I have actually seen a massive rise. It's mainly in threads, but just on social media in general as well, of men bashing.
Yeah,
it makes me feel so uncomfortable.
Yes.
Yeah, Miss Andrew, exactly.
Wow. Wow.
And some of the things that I've seen, I'm like, if we flip this on the head, and men were saying this about women, like we'd be up in arms. But there are women saying, and like, I'm not trying to generalize, but I've seen things being like, "Oh, men just aren't that funny." Like, men try to do all of these things, and but we just do them so much better. What are they here for anyway? And it's just like, I know,
because what we're actually doing is we're setting up an oppositional situation.
Exactly,
and that's not we all a rising tide raises all boats.
But I think that is just for parents out there. That's something to be aware of.
Very aware.
That's kind of circulating. Yeah. Because I've seen it a lot recently.
Yeah, same. It's all over the place.
And I don't think it's good at all.
It's not healthy.
No.
Right. Well, I think we've covered pretty much everything I wanted to cover. Just a quick one. If you had to do a 20-minute talk with zero preparation, what would it be on? Something you know about.
TV shows.
TV shows?
Yeah.
Okay. You mean ER or something like that. What's it
ER?
called? Grey's Anatomy.
Oh, well, no, like, yeah, Grey's Anatomy, but I think
TV shows.
I think
okay.
I would lose steam with that. I mean, just in general, I could talk about
Okay.
TV shows forever.
Phoebe?
Cicero.
I knew I was
Cicero.
going to do something like that.
You did a presentation the other night on it. Very interesting.
I mean, no, I take mine back. Actually, I could talk about Henry VIII for months. Like, not even joking.
Brilliant. Okay, great. Thank you so much for joining us, Phoebe and Amelia. Have you found this enjoyable, interesting? You learnt anything? Please pass it on to at least one other person. Just click that now.
Go follow the socials.
Go follow the socials. I'm on Instagram. I'm on Threads, but I don't see some of that stuff. I just talk about parenting.
No, it's toxic femininity
LinkedIn.
on Threads.
No,
Stay away.
Stay away. I don't like that stuff. I think actually just stay away.
Some of it's quite funny, but most of it is like really bad.
And I'm not really on TikTok. Anyway, I'm on the socials. Please email me with any questions, any feedback. It's teenagersuntangled@gmail.com.
And if you like this, don't be scared to make a review or say something nice.
Reviews are really, really wonderful.
Can you say something
Anytime.
nice about me, please? Thank you.
That's Phoebe. Just in case
Yeah.
you couldn't tell. 5 stars are always very welcome. And I think that's it. Have a great week.
Otherwise, I'm going to have to turn to ChatGPT.
That's it from us. Have a great week. Big hug from me. Bye-bye.